your attention now. We do have a very special guest in the room, which we're about to get to now. Now, Frank Maguire just notified me of the connection between the Melbourne Storm and the Broadmeadows area, of course, where the Meadows Greyhound track is. Now, Melbourne Storm's training headquarters, which is the centre of excellence, will now be located in the next couple of years at Broadmeadows. It's going to be, as they call it, the Fields of Dreams. And so we can't wait to see how that plays out. Melbourne Storm already dominant, and no doubt they're only going to get better. So the next part of our day here today, as we come toward the close, is a little bit of a chat between Troy Harley, the Bendigo club manager, and the great Craig Bellamy, of course, the coach of the great Melbourne Storm. Get around the Storm. Ladies and gents. Troy Harley and Craig Bellamy. Up you come, gentlemen. How you going, mate? Good. Troy, pop behind me. You can jump on those there and we'll get an extra mic. Take it away.
You talk about the... Is it on there? Clear? Yeah? No?
We might just need that turned up a little bit. Can you just test yours there, Craig?
Yeah, it's working, yeah.
Yeah.
The bloke getting paid works, the freebie don't. How does that work? You talk about success there, James. You talk about the Melbourne Storm, but the Melbourne Storm being a very successful team in their own right, I think the majority of that is to this man on my left in Craig Bellamy. A premiership player, a 10-year player with the Canberra Radius. Can't believe it's nearly 30 years since you won that competition, Craig. But
when I get out of bed in the morning, I do. Yeah.
In that 16 years of the Melbourne Storm, you've unofficially won 4 competitions, officially won 2. I think you've only been out of the semi-finals once in that period of time, and that was when you couldn't get any points because of that salary cap period. 4 times Dally M Coach of the Year and twice the Rugby League International Coach of the Year. From a boy from Portland that started off playing a bit of football in somewhere between Lithgow and Bathurst. If you don't know where Portland is, how did you think that list of achievements would be today?
Yeah, I obviously didn't see that coming, but at the end of the day, I don't sort of sit around too much and think about it. It's it's been a great ride, and it's been tremendous for my family and tremendous for me. I've been extremely lucky to end up at the Storm, and this is coming into my 17th year, so that's sort of it's not a thing that's done too often these days, as you know. Like a lot of people when the club's not going so good, the coach is out the door straight away. So, but I've been extremely lucky to to work with a lot of wonderful players, and a lot of wonderful players that have been really good for a really long time. And for a lot of people that don't know our game, we've probably had 3 of the best players that probably ever played the game. Our captain this year should play his 400th NRL game, which no one else has ever done in our history. So I've been very lucky to have some wonderful players to work with, and they've been outstanding players, but also outstanding people, which you need in your organisation.
I think one of the things of those success would be loyalty. You're a one-club player in terms of your playing career, and you've just signed a 3-year extension deal with the Melbourne Storm that may or may not be your last, but if it is your last, that makes you a one-team coach as well. Do you think loyalty is something that needs to re-enter the professional sporting ranks?
Yeah, it's certainly a thing that it's not like it used to be. Having said that, a lot of people, blame players for not being loyal, but it goes both ways. If there's a player of your club's not pulling his weight, basically the club, they'll be quite ruthless in trying to, get rid of that player, or if he's off contract, getting rid of that player. So it goes both ways, and it's a thing that I don't particularly like. I have prided myself on, playing for the only team I played in the NRL was for the Raiders. I played for 10 years for them, and the only team that I've head coached is the Storm. I'm pretty proud of that, and you forge very strong relationships with people around you play with, or you're coaching. So again, that's happened down here. I was very grateful that the Storm gave me an opportunity here. No one else gave me an opportunity except the Storm, and So, you know, I think when I signed my last contract, I think I owed them some loyalty, and hopefully I've showed that.
And with that opportunity, you mentioned your superstar players, your Cam Smith, Billy Slater and and Cooper Cronk. They pretty much got a chance at the Melbourne Storm too, as opposed to not being necessarily wanted at other clubs as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. You know, like a lot of people say, oh, gee, you know, the club's been so lucky to have those three players, and they have, without a doubt. But the club recruited those three as kids. You know, they weren't playing NRL anywhere else. They recruited them as kids, and they all come from Queensland. So, you know, the Broncos and the Cowboys, you know, didn't notice them. And, you know, they were recruited as young guys, and they'd been developed, you know, as young guys. So, you know, I'm sure the club's, you know, really proud of, you know, of being able to have those players in our club. But they got them early and developed them. And, you know, as I said, they've been wonderful for our game, wonderful for our club.
There's obviously something special about the Melbourne Storm to keep yourself and those three guys. No doubt the four of you would have certainly had some solid offers to leave the rival clubs. But when you come to the Melbourne Storm in AFL Heartland, you're pretty much on the same fairway as Richmond and Collingwood, and you're stuck in the middle of them. Did you think that the Melbourne Storm could get the traction it's got? And I suppose, how highly can you speak of the culture of the Melbourne Storm to have that success basically in the heart of Melbourne?
Yeah, it was really different. I come down, obviously the club's 20 years old now, or, you know, 21 years old, whatever it is, and, you know, I wasn't here for the first 5 years, you know, so it was really different for me to come. You know, as I said, played in Canberra, and I had, you know, some coaching experience there, and then I went to the Broncos, which is, you know, right in the middle of mad NRL heartland. So to come here and not really, you know, it was all about the AFL, which it still is, but it was like strange for me, but it was, I quite enjoyed it, to be quite honest, and I still enjoy it. I think our players are definitely under the radar down here as far as, you know, like what they do on the field, you know, and how good they are, or how bad they're going, whatever. So they don't get as much publicity as, you know, as players in, you know, New South Wales and Queensland, and I find that's very handy in trying to keep younger players' feet on the ground, to be quite honest. And so, you know, I see that as a real plus. But, you know, being down here, and obviously the Storm's pretty much set now, and, you know, in Melbourne we know where our niche is. It's a couple of steps below the AFL, without a doubt, but, you know, we're happy with that, you know, and like I say, we're just, you know, it's really important to me and our club that our players behave themselves as well. You know, we need to do the right things off the field besides on the field, because if we're going to, you know, be a face for rugby league in Melbourne, you know, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to get sponsors or members or whatever, but, you know, if our players, you know, do the right thing on the field and do the right thing off the field, well, that gives us a better chance.
I suppose one thing about it is that I think the Melbourne Storm membership is the fourth highest membership now in the NRL, behind the likes of Brisbane, South Sydney and Parramatta. So to have that sort of achievement and support from this community, does that less scrutiny off the field certainly help as well as the less scrutiny on the field, in terms of, it's been a pretty ordinary off-season for rugby league again, as it does most sports in 5 and 10 year cycles, but does that assist as well? I
think it probably does. You know, obviously our guys go out and have a beer every now and then, and, you know, especially during the season, our drinks, you know, for whatever, are planned. You know, we got a little rule, anything under a 7-day turnaround, you know, they don't have a drink, but when it's 7 days or more on the turnaround, you know, we say, okay, it's, you know, time to go and let your hair down. Again, they're in a fairly high pressure situation. I think because our guys are not really recognised, I think that certainly helps, but as I said, I don't think our guys have done too much wrong, hopefully. At the end of the day, as I said, it's really important that, you know, our players are good ambassadors for our game in Melbourne, and, you know, good ambassadors for our club, and that's really important to everybody at the club. And, you know, when the players first come here, that's one of the first messages they get.
Talking about that management of the player in the time you've been as a coach, but also back in the playing days, how finely tuned managed is a professional, well, athlete these days, but rugby league player? I know you know, the grounds these days are much more finer and fitter and harder than they've ever been, and worked harder than they've ever been. From training point of view, but then also that off-field personal management point of view. Yeah,
obviously, you know, when I played, it was part-time, so it was, you know, it's a whole heap different to what it is now. There's obviously a lot more training happens. Yeah, I think at times perhaps we do over-manage our players, and I try to be aware of that. And again, you're sort of telling them what they should be eating, you're telling them how long they should be sleeping and how you should be sleeping and how you should be getting to sleep and all these other things. So we tried not to do too much of that and give them some responsibility themselves. The thing I don't like these days is, the thing I don't understand, that's probably why I don't like it. I like to understand the things that I like, and social media. It's unbelievable how much notice a lot of our younger players take of social media. They get on there and read about, like sometimes after a game. This year we're going to ban phones in our dressing rooms, for players. So sometimes after a game, whether it be a win or a loss, players straight to their locker and on the phone. And I'm sort of thinking they're probably looking at some text messages from mum and dad, because their mums and dads ain't here, because seeing, give them a bit of advice or whatever. But they go straight to social media to see what Tom, Dick and Harry up the road think of their performance. Who cares? At the end of the day, it's what they care, what their teammates care, and what I think of their performance, not what someone that's sitting at a, I don't know, computer or whatever they sit at, and give their opinion. I just don't understand why you want to take so much notice of that. Or someone you don't even know, do they know about the game? Well, I don't know, but their brother might have told them what they thought of the game. I don't know. I just don't understand that. And there's a lot of things I don't understand about social media, and I haven't even got an email, so I'll do social media. So I think emails are time wasters too. So so I just like to get on with my job.
The lucky Mark and Eddie's got a pigeon that found where you were to give you the notice.
I've got a phone.
Wait, with that management of the players and stuff, what's a team behind you and around you? Apart from being the coach, the old days was a coach and a trainer, and that was probably about it. What sort of team have you got behind you to manage an elite squad of 30 rugby league players?
Yeah, we've got 4 coaches, the 4 coaches, and a lot of other clubs have got what they call a video analyst that does all the video work for the opposition. We don't have one of them. We do that ourselves. At the end of the day, I don't want my coaches watching parts of games. I want them watching whole games. It's all right to watch that part of the game, but what happened before that, what happened after that, that's really important for me. So again, it's the analyst really is very time friendly to coaches, but I think they lose a lot in their education if you rely too much on them. So I've got 4 coaches. I think we've got 4 in our physical department. So we've got a head of performance, a weights coach, sprints coach, and a rehab coach, and then we've got 2 physios and a part-time physio, and also we'd have a guy that does all the strapping and the supplements and stuff like that. So our staff is pretty fine compared to a lot of other staff, especially AFL. AFL are very they've got a lot of people in their staff. They've got probably more than the players, I think. But like I say, I see it really important that we've got enough help. But also it's really important that people are working hard at their job and not relying on someone else just to take some shortcuts. Because I think you got to take the long route if you're going to learn about the game and be good at your job.
The investment at Broadmeadows, how important is that for the future of the game, not just for players but also coaches and other staff to get involved at this level? Will be a pretty significant thing for the future of the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah, without doubt. And Frank's sitting over there, and he obviously had a huge influence on that. And as I said, the Storm's 20, 21 years old, whatever it is now. We've never really, like us as a club, but also our game, the NRL, have never put a good system in place for rugby league players playing at the grassroots level in Melbourne or Victoria, for that matter. There's never been a lot of education for our coaches. There's never been a good amenities and setups, and we've had three local kids that have come through the system here and play NRL, and without wonderful kids, all 3 of them, but they've been really inconsistent because they haven't been educated well enough on what they need to do on the field, but also what they need to do off the field, and that inconsistency of that education for the local players has an adverse effect on them going up to the next level. But I think with these amenities getting built and some good, coaching practices getting put in place, that we're a chance now of having a lot of good local kids coming through, and there's some real talented kids. We had 4 or 5 of our local kids, only 18, 19, out of the local comp, come and train with us all pre-season. There's a couple of them there. They've got some ability. It would have been nice if they had, that bit more thorough education as they were coming up. Then hopefully, we'll have that from now on.
One of your big challenges over the next 3 years, apart from trying to win 3 more competitions, is finding that long-term replacement, I guess, for the likes of Slater, Cronk and Cameron Smith. And we talked about a couple of dogs earlier. It'd be like trying to find a replacement for Miata, Fanta Bale and Tornado Tears in the staying ring. So how does that process go about now? Are you looking, you've got 2 of those blokes gone, and you're looking for trialling replacements now, but maybe more so of Cam Smith. How does his role change in the last 2 years of his contract to get another first-class hooker in the third year of yours? Yeah,
well, again, you sort of, there's always a bit of long-term planning, but it's also hard when you don't know when they're going to be leaving. Cooper took us a little bit by surprise. When he left and went to Sydney, so that was a big job trying to get a replacement for him. And to be quite honest, we probably still haven't. We've gone 12 months, and the role Cooper plays, he's like a quarterback in the NFL. So he was our brains, I suppose. So our main brains and our biggest voice. So to get a young guy to do that, and we had 3 guys filling that position last year. So again, we're still not set on that. And it's like I say, it's tough, trying to find someone to replace him. But at the end of the day, if we've got just the mentality, we need to replace Cooper Cronk, we'll never find him. What we've got to do is find the best version of whatever this kid is, and try and use his strengths, to weld into our team. That's what we've got to do. We're never going to find another Cooper Cronk, so we need to find someone that'll basically fit in to our basic structures and plans, but also bring some strengths in that we can use, to help us be a better team. And it's the same with Billy this year. Like, we're obviously going to miss him big time, but we've got a couple of young kids there that we probably knew Billy, especially with his shoulder there a couple of years ago, that he wasn't going to be with us a whole heap longer, so he probably lasted a season longer than what we thought. But these 2 young kids, they'll get their chance as well. And but like I said, we're not going to find another Billy Slater either. We just need to find the best version of one of these kids as we can, to teach them the things that we see as important as being in our footy team, but also using their strengths to hopefully stick to a certain plan that takes advantage of that.
Well, the salary cap issues, couldn't believe it's 10 years ago, end of 2009 that was found out, but you were stripped of 2 titles and had to front up every week in 2010 knowing you were playing for the Wooden Spoon regardless of your performance. How difficult was that for you individually, and then to have those players turn up week in, week out for 6 months of the year knowing they were playing for nothing?
Yeah, I'm 60-year-old, so I've been through a few things in my life, but other than my dad, I lost my dad when I was young. He got killed in a work accident, and I can't remember anything worse than the salary cap. Other than that, that's how devastating it was, for the whole club. And it was, obviously we were getting pounded by the press. We were getting pounded by away fans. It was real tough for the players and the whole club itself. So there's a couple of things I learnt. I was only sort of talking about the other day, actually. I don't know, find way to strengthen individuals or strengthen your club, or you want to go through something like that. But I think we ended up a stronger club on the other side, and we probably had to survive. But there was a couple of things I learnt. Number one was, when you're going through a bit of adversity, is just control the controllables. So, as I said to the players there, sort of down out there a couple of times, and we were getting pounded by the NRL. We still, after it took the leader of the NRL 4 months before he came down and explained what happened and why the penalties were what they were. 4 months, ridiculous. So that was, so we thought we were getting shafted by them, to be quite honest. The media was obviously into, some other people in our club, than others, but as a club we were getting pounded, and obviously when we went away we were getting pounded by away fans, as you could imagine. But as I said, we couldn't control what the NRL were doing to us. We couldn't control what the media were writing about us. We couldn't control what the away fans did, when we went to their grounds. What we could control is how we trained, how we prepared, and how we played. And even more important was how I prepared, how I trained, and how I played. I had to go back to the individual to do the best they can. And the other big thing that I learnt, and this was probably the best thing I'd done through the whole saga of it. I think it was about round 5 when we got our, when the penalties come, and so we played 20 games for our no points, which was, when you've got competitive young men around and you're coaching to be competitive, that sounds ridiculous to me. But the one thing I did really well. I didn't know it at the time, and I'm a stubborn prick at times, but
There's a few fines that say that.
yeah, there is actually. But the one thing that I've always done since I burnt the Storm, I've always had the mentality of not giving away a Storm jumper. Now, by that I mean, if you don't deserve to be playing in our team, I ain't going to put you in there because you're earning more money than someone else in the team, or the chairman wants you in the team, whatever it is. At the end of the day, if you don't deserve to be in the team, you ain't going to be in the team. And there was 2 criteria to be in the team. Number 1, you train consistently well all through the week, and you play consistently well with our feeder teams. So you're doing them 2 things, you're a chance of playing. But if you're not doing both of them, you're not going to be in our team. So we knew we weren't playing for any points. We knew we were going to lose we lost 14 players at the end of that season, and good players, Hoffman, Inglis, Finch, Lima, White, all those guys. And we knew that was going to happen. So I remember the assistant coaches come to me, I had 2 at the time, and they come up and said, hey, listen, I think we should put a few of these younger blokes in, and or a couple of these older blokes that, that hadn't come up to scratch yet. Why don't we put them in to see how they go, for next year? Which the theory's pretty good theory. But at the end of the day, I'm thinking, I'm giving away a jumper there. I'm giving away a jumper. I ain't going to give away a jumper. So about 3 or 4 days later, the CEO comes over, shuts the door, and I'm thinking something's going to happen here. I think I might be out the door. But so he basically says the same. So there's been a couple of little meetings away from me, at the club. And I said, hey, listen, you want to do that, you sack me, and then you do that. But while I'm coach here, I will not give away a Storm jumper. Okay, I don't care who's leaving next year or whatever. We are concentrating on now. We'll worry about next year. Next year, we're concentrating on now. And if he deserves a jumper, I'll put him in there. If you don't, he ain't there. So off he goes. And then about 2 days later, the chairman comes over. And I'm not that smart, but I worked out by then what he was going to say. So I told him the same thing. And like I say, that was the best thing I did. No, I was probably a bit stubborn in it because there was, as I said, the theory was pretty good. But I reckon that's the best thing I did, because I tell you what it did. It didn't, by having that mentality, we didn't drop our standards. If I was just going to put anyone in there because, they were a young bloke, or they were a guy that hadn't played much first grade, but they weren't playing well, or they weren't training well, that's dropping standards. And if you drop your standards too much, it takes a lot longer to get back up. And it's real hard work to get those standards back up. So I think by sticking by those standards, that really helped us in the next year. And the next year, as I said, we brought a couple of blokes out of retirement. We had a lot of reserve grades come from other clubs, but we won the minor premiership. We didn't win the premiership, but we won the minor premiership. And I don't think I've ever been more proud of a playing group in all my 16 years at the Storm than that group. And they were outstanding. And like I say, I think my biggest part in that was I didn't drop those standards.
I think you won the competition then in 2012 and haven't been out of the top 4 since. So obviously that year was certainly a learning curve. And I suppose we talk about professional sportsmen, all about the money. That certainly showed that victory was just as important to those with sport running through their bloods than the money as well.
Yeah, without a doubt that, as I said, I couldn't be proud of them. And then, as you say, in 2012 we ended up winning the competition. So that was it was it was like a strange feeling, you know, like to have your titles taken away from you. Then 2 years later, you win another title. You know, it was quite. I don't know. It was. You just can't sort of explain the feeling. But I must say, I missed a bit of the real enjoyment. You know, I remember coming in after the 12 grand final, and you know, it was 2 years after all the shit happened, and I'm thinking, is this real? You know, and I'm thinking, you know, this has been a tremendous effort by these players. And then I was seeing that there was about 5 or 6 players that played in 7 and 9 that were in the dressing room. There was Adam Blair, Brett White, Steve Turner, I think Jeff Loomer was in there, Ben Cross, and Brett White, who, for you guys don't know, he's a big, rough, tough front row, and he was crying. And I didn't know whether he was crying because he was so happy that we won another comp, or he was sort of feeling, well, you know, these guys that have played today, they've got their titles back, but I haven't. And I must say, I spent about 2 days feeling sorry for the guys that lost their titles, and then, you know, they weren't part of that team. So, but anyway, it was an interesting time.
He's talking Troy. We're going to have to wrap up very soon. I know we could sit here and listen to Craig for the next...
I think they're all going to sleep. It's time
oh, look, I'll tell you.
I will ask Craig about his Greyhound engagement.
One last one.
One more. So, Craig grew up in Portland, which is between Bathurst and Lithgow, two very bloody cold areas, but two Greyhound heartlands. Your involvement with Greyhound racing, you've had a little bit of contact there over the years?
Yeah, I haven't had a whole heap to do with it, I must say, but I had a real good mate at school, and he started training greyhounds, walking greyhounds, and doing a couple of other things with greyhounds I don't think he's supposed to be doing. But I used to go to the Lithgow dogs and Bathurst dogs with him, and it was interesting for me. All I'd ever, if you didn't play rugby league in Portland in winter, you didn't play nothing. So it was interesting to see another sport, you know. And so I had some great afternoons down at Lithgow dogs and the Bathurst dogs, and but I'd like to say I'm not much of a punter, but it was good fun.
Anthony has the party down here laughing. That's where he cut his teeth to Lithgow dogs and Mossvale, those sort of joints. Kicked a few goals since then, both of you actually. That's good.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Troy Harley, you're a champion.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Craig.
And ladies, and of course the great Craig Bellamy. Thanks a lot, Craig.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Good luck. Well, we're almost ready to wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, but just before we do, I'm going to have a couple of more quiz questions. Now, I heard Craig saying he doesn't give away a Storm jumper easily. Well, we've acquired 2 of them, signed, so we are going to be giving them away. I know it's a little bit different to what he meant, but still, 2 to be given away, as well as a signed Melbourne Storm ball. First up, though, I've got a $100 tab betting voucher, and I'm wanting to give that away. It will lead up to our next special guest. Who was the winner of the 1999 Australian Cup at the Meadows? The first run at the Meadows. Correct. Right at the back. I will get this $100 ticket sent out to you. Well done, Greg Carter there. Mandatario was the Greyhound. Now, it's special because this year it is the 20th running of the TAB Australian Cup at the Meadows. And I'd now like to welcome to the stage the owner of Mandatario, and that is Sue Jolly, ladies and gentlemen. Now, as Sue makes her way up, welcome, Sue. This Greyhound Mandatario won the Australian Cup in 1999 by head honcho Matombo Miss.
That's right.
Raced by yourself and Graham.
Yes.
Had 43 starts for just the 8 wins, but pocketed an Australian Cup at a price of 20 to 1 from box number 2.
Paid $48 a win.
Oh, the stats I have here are wrong.
He paid $48 a win. My mother had $20 on the nose on him, and we almost had to call the ambulance because she was just beside herself.
What was it like to win an Australian Cup?
Oh well, I tell you, it was a training greyhounds in the Jolly household was it was a whole family effort. You know, we would drag the kids out of bed to trial them at Warrigal after the last on a wet, rainy night with the kids in the back of the panel van and the dog in the back and all of those sorts of things. And our youngest daughter, Lauren, who's here with me today, I mean, she had her second birthday at Sale at the old track, you know, and so it was very much a family thing. And I mean, to win the cup was just a huge thing. In those days, you had to go through qualies, heats, semis, and a final. And look, he won his semi-final, and he got box 2. So those people who drew box 2, you can do a mandatario and you can win. Let me tell you, because he was the absolute rank outsider in the field. Nobody gave him a chance of winning. And I can always remember it was my mother's birthday, the 1st of March, when he won. And my mother said to Graham, you know, he's going to win because it's my birthday. And Graham said, oh, well, we're going around and to just win $1,000 because he'd won the semi the week before. So Graham thought he'd already won his race, you know, winning his semi-final. And but Mum said, no, you're going to win. And so Graham said, no, just $1,000 for running around, Mum, is enough, you know, just to have a dog good enough to get there. And he had to win his semi, and he came out of box 8 and he won his semi-final. And anyway, so he drew box 2 and, you know, Graham, bless his heart, unfortunately, I mean, Graham passed away 3 years ago, but it was his biggest crowning glory, of course, to win an Australian Cup. And he'd sit there the week before and we'd go through the race, you know, like, you know, if this happens and that happens, and, you know, and I used to say, Graham, look, the race will be run how the race will be run, you know. Anyway, we get to the track and he gets his white dinner suit on, and he's just with his black and white check bow tie, and he's just beside himself, you know, to have got this, you know. And the fact that we bred Mandatario ourselves, we raced his mother, Matumbo Miss, that's right. And we bred her in the backyard in Oakley, and we kept her there for 3 months, and then she went off to be reared and came back. And the same with Mandatario. His kennel name was Brandon, so, you know, when he was racing, you'd always hear me screaming out Brandon, and people look at you thinking, there's no dog in this race called Brandon, you know. I was saying, but no, his name was Mandatario. But look, it was just a huge thing. I can remember I was standing, Graham went, you know, we did the parade, and Graham went to the boxes and the dog's in, and I'm standing at the finishing line with Doris Toner, and we're both standing there. And they didn't have the big screen up in those days, so you had no idea what was happening, let me tell you. So we're standing at the finishing post, and all of us, I could hear Ron Hawkswell saying Mandatario something. Oh my God, he must be in front because he's mentioning him, you know. Anyway, he came flying past us at the finishing post the first time, and Doris Toner said to me, oh my God, he's in front, you know. So I think she was screaming louder than I was, which would have been pushing it, let me tell you, because we were both just yelling this dog home. And we lost sight of him over the back, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, please God, don't let him be run down on the post. I'd much rather he was last out and last home. I couldn't, not for Graham, I thought, no, we couldn't possibly, please don't let him be run down on the post. Anyway, he comes round, and here he is, 3.5 lengths in front, and he wins, and oh my God, I don't know if Doris was more excited or I was more excited to win it. And it was the culmination of 40-something years of Graham's involvement in greyhound racing to bring us to this point. But the thing I think about greyhound racing is it's one of the opportunities for a whole family to be involved in the sport. You know, like Lauren, who's here with me tonight, she had her second birthday on the old track at Sale because Graham had a dog in, and so we took the birthday cake, and, you know, so we sang happy birthday to her at the back of the car, and, you know, it was, you know, and all our kids grew up, you know, with greyhounds, and kept the kids in school a lot of years. The dogs managed to win every time school fees came in, and but winning the Australian Cup was the culmination. And Mandatario had a tendon problem on his back offside leg, and which meant Graham had to nurse this dog all the time through various races. And after he won his semi at the Meadows, I don't know if anybody here is old enough to ever remember Aussie Moses, who was a bone man. I don't think anybody. Oh, you remember him, Eddie? Yeah, because you and me are the same vintage. And Neil, that's right. And as soon as the dog won the semi, Graham took him off to Meadows, where Ozzy was staying, and he had a look at the dog and told Graham that yes, you've got to ultrasound it all week and do this and do that. And so Graham got him to the track, and up went the lids, and out flew this dog, number 2, and those glorious 3 letters LAW, he led all the way, and it was just fantastic. And when they came at him over the back, he closed the gap, and it was like divine intervention that day for the dog to win. It was like all the gods were aligned, and it was just a magic moment. And what it enabled us to do, it enabled us to then live Graham's dream, which was to buy a property and to race and to rear his own dogs. I mean, we never had the same success, but I think, you know what, sometimes you only have the one win in you. You know, I mean, he had a lot of success with other dogs, but I mean, that was the culmination of everything for Graham, and you know, and he was so excited, you know, when he won. And you know, look, it was at that race time. Our middle daughter was with us at the track. Our eldest daughter was in Sydney, and she was trying to find a pub up in the Blue Mountains to listen to the race. And she said they went into this pub, and the publican found the race broadcaster, and all they could hear was static, 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 mandatario, static, 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 mandatario. So she had no idea where he finished. So we're on the podium getting presented, and my middle daughter's mobile phone goes off, and Claire said, "Where the bloody hell did he finish?" You know, and Nicole said he won, and we're all, you know. And our youngest daughter Lauren was in Brisbane, and she was standing on the table in a pub cheering him home. And look, it was just an amazing thing, and like I say, it enabled us to buy a property. So Graham got to live his dream, and unfortunately he passed away in 2015. But the dog changed our lives. Winning the Australian Cup changed our lives, and you know, and it was a fantastic. And I'll forever be grateful for that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sue Jolly, and I think that there was a perfect way to finish. The dog changed their lives, and the one thing that I picked out of that was it was a magic moment. And for somebody, some set of connections this Saturday night, that magic moment will come true for them. We've got the $100 voucher which has been given away, but I've got a Melbourne Storm ball to be given away just quickly before we get to Rob Britton, who's going to chat Tornado Tears before we wrap it all up. This Melbourne Storm ball, what distance, here's the quiz, it's a tough one, what distance will the Australian Cup be run over? Vince, come and collect, mate. I'm glad he got that one right. Can you catch? Hoping Craig saw that and he might give me a go. I'm the right size, I think, anyway. Alrighty, last but not least, the great Robbie Britton, ladies and gentlemen. I might give you this one if we want to. All right, Robbie, you've been here on Australian Cup night. You've had the success. How does that feel? And then moving on to a superstayer, Fanta Bale was your superstayer. Now the race is named the Fanta Bale, and you've maybe got another superstar, or I think you have, Tornado Tears. Just talk us through that.
First of all, it is a great night, Australian Cup night, and I always remember Sue and Graham Jolly winning that. It's probably the most joyous night of the Australian Cup, in that it was the rank outsider and it was the people's elect, so it was fantastic. But no, as far as we've gone, Australian Cup night's been good to us. Fanta Bar, we thought we'd never get another one.
Yeah.
And then for Tornado Tears to come along. And look, he's an easy dog to train, so was Fanta Bar. You just take them to the track and they do the job.
Now, you feel for a trainer like Chris Walder in the Gallops with Winks, and I feel for a trainer like you in the Greyhounds, Robbie Britton, training a Greyhound like Tornado Tears. Do you feel the pressure?
You do at times, yeah, for certain. For example, when he's had 5 months off, you're hoping they come back, but you really, until they do it, you don't know.
Yeah.
So, but that was really pleasing. But in general, no, I can handle it pretty well.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say, and I think a lot of Greyhound people will agree with me, that the training effort that you produced with Tornado Tears, for him to win first up in an invitation Group 1 over 700 metres after a serious injury, I thought that was, if not the best training effort I've ever seen. It was very high up there.
Yeah,
And hats off.
I look at, I was given a lot of advice years ago where if you've got a hock injury, take the vet's advice, but then double it.
Yeah.
And whatever the time is, and I took that advice with this dog and said, well, instead of doing 8 weeks, we'll do 16 weeks.
Yeah.
And it ended up being 5 months. But he had a great preparation into that race. And I was very confident that we had him right. It just he hadn't been over 700, that's all.
Going into this Saturday night, he's drawn box number 5. I think he's drawn okay. I was speaking to you just whilst having some lunch, and I think he's drawn well, ladies and gents, because what I think he's going to get Black Impala in box 4. I know you don't agree, but 4 will lead them out. If he can just slot in behind, get onto the rail, I think he's going to get the nice run through, and I think he'll be just too good.
Look, I just love your confidence, but to be quite honest, sitting at home, I was just hoping like hell I'd draw inside a Black Impala.
Yeah.
So when it went the other way, I wasn't that happy. But look, whatever will be, and there'll be times you get beat. But as far as I'm concerned, as long as we can get a career out of the dog, he'll win more than he loses, and that's the main thing.
Well, he's a wonderful dog. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Rob Britton, and good luck on Saturday night.
Thanks, Joe.
Cheers. All the best. So that is the Superstayers, Tornado Tears. He'll be $1.30 or thereabouts with the tab, so no doubt he'll be very, very hard to beat. Well, that wraps up just about this afternoon. I always like to finish with a couple of more giveaways. I'm just trying to think of some good questions that I can come up with. What can we go? What's the distance? And this is for a signed Craig Bellamy shirt from the Melbourne Storm. What is the distance of the Superstayers this Saturday night? 7:25, correct. 1 to Eddie Caruana. And I believe I've got one more to give away. All right, here we go. What box will Tornado Tears jump from? Everybody broke the rule of just quietly putting their hand up there. I'll give it to Pete Hall, though. He was really loud and really clear. So well done to you, Pete. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what an afternoon it's been here at Zinc. It's been a wonderful day as we start the countdown to the TAB Australian Cup on Saturday night. The MGRA would like to thank GRV for their assistance in today's event, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Make sure you tune in, get to the Meadows on Saturday night because the pens are primed, the history books are open, and it's going to be a wonderful night of greyhound racing. Don't forget your chance to win a car just for being on track on Saturday night. Let's enjoy Saturday, the Australian Cup. Thank you.